Your card will probably get declined anyway, Philip sneered, loud enough for the entire boutique to hear. Liana stood frozen, clutching the jade bracelet meant for her grandfather, as the socialites behind her stifled cruel laughter. But before she could respond, the boutique doors flew open, and the man who stepped in would change everything. It was a bright Thursday afternoon when Liana Brooks stepped off the subway and made her way through the bustling streets of Manhattan, the sounds of honking taxis and murmuring crowds blending into the city's usual rhythm. She clutched her small beige purse tightly, the list of errands in her head rapidly shrinking until only one remained, the Emerald Loft. The boutique's name shimmered in silver script across the glass storefront ahead, clean, elegant, and intimidating. But Liana wasn't here to impress anyone. She was here for something important. Something meaningful. Her grandfather's 75th birthday was next week, and she'd saved for nearly a year to buy him something he'd treasure. A jade bracelet. Not one of those factory-made knockoffs you'd find at tourist markets, but a genuine piece, crafted with care, like the kind he used to talk about when reminiscing about his childhood in Louisiana. Liana took a breath, smoothed the wrinkles out of her pale yellow blouse, and stepped inside. The air inside the Emerald Loft was sharp and perfumed, cool against her skin. Marble tiles gleamed under soft lighting. Tall glass displays showcased intricate jade sculptures, pendants suspended like floating emeralds, and bracelets that sparkled under halogen lights. It was quiet. Almost too quiet. Classical music played softly in the background, and two saleswomen whispered behind the counter, their matching green silk blouses tucked into pencil skirts. A man stood at the far end of the showroom, arms folded, observing everything. He had the posture of someone used to being obeyed, his salt and pepper hair neatly slicked back. His name tag read Philip Reynolds, store manager. When he noticed her, his smile was quick but didn't quite reach his eyes. "May I help you?" he asked, stepping forward with rehearsed grace, though his gaze flicked immediately to her scuffed flats and faded jeans. Liana, polite as ever, nodded. "Yes, I'm looking for a jade bracelet. A gift for my grandfather's birthday." "Of course," Philip replied, his tone clipped, his eyes still assessing her. "We have some stunning pieces just in from Shanghai." He led her to a display case near the center of the store and, with exaggerated care, unlocked it. Inside sat 4 bracelets, each carved in intricate patterns and resting on silk pillows. This one, he gestured to a piece with dragon motifs, retails at $180,000. It's carved from imperial green jadeite. Stunning color, excellent translucency. A worthy gift for such an occasion. Liana's eyes widened before she could stop herself. "Oh, wow. That's beautiful, but I was hoping to stay under 12,000. Philip's brows lifted a fraction, his entire demeanor altering in an instant. The professional polish faded. He clicked his tongue lightly and muttered, "Under 12. He said it like she'd asked for a cheeseburger in a 5-star restaurant. "Well," he added with a sigh, "we do have a few modest options." He locked the display again with a little more force than necessary and began walking toward the back of the boutique. Liana followed, clutching her purse tighter. They arrived at a corner of the showroom where the lights weren't as bright. The cabinet here didn't shimmer like the others, it was darker, older, and clearly neglected. Philip opened the case and gestured loosely. "These are our gift tier items. Low demand, but perhaps you'll find something suitable." Liana crouched slightly, studying the options. Most of the bracelets were simpler, with less vibrant coloring. But one caught her eye, a series of delicate jade beads carved into olive leaves. Her grandfather always said olive branches symbolized peace. "This one," she said softly. "How much is it?" Philip barely glanced at the bracelet. 11.8. "I suppose with tax, you'd be looking at just over 12. Liana did the math in her head. It was nearly everything she had, but she'd planned for that. She stood up. "I'd like to take it." But before she could say another word, the boutique's front doors opened with a sweep of chilled air, and a group of women entered, laughter bouncing off the marble floor. They were dressed head to toe in designer brands, perfectly tailored trench coats, expensive heels, and handbags worth more than Liana's rent. One of them was Vivian Chase, a notorious Upper East Side socialite with a reputation for snark and an Instagram full of champagne and private jets. Next to her was Camille Rivers, the Oscar-nominated actress known for her icy beauty and perfectly curated mystique. Liana knew them both, had seen them at a charity event once, where she volunteered to help serve wine. She hadn't expected them to remember her. She was right. They didn't. But they noticed her. Vivian's eyes narrowed the moment she spotted Liana near the back display. "Well, look at that," she said loud enough for everyone to hear. "I didn't realize the Emerald Loft was doing community outreach." Camille stifled a laugh. "Maybe it's a new initiative," she murmured. "Shop with the peasants." Philip's attention snapped to the glamorous newcomers like a moth to flame. He practically abandoned Liana mid-conversation. "Miss Chase, Miss Rivers, what a pleasure," he beamed, suddenly full of energy. "Can I show you our new high-end imports?" Vivian barely glanced at him. "Just browsing," she said, walking right past him toward Liana. "Oh," she added with mock surprise. "You're actually trying to buy something?" Liana stood her ground. "Yes. A gift." "For whom?" "Your landlord?" Camille quipped. The sales associates were trying to contain their smirks. Philip, sensing an opportunity to appear loyal, stepped in. "Miss Brooks," he said to Liana, his voice now drained of all politeness, "if you're not ready to purchase, I'd appreciate if you'd step aside. We have clients looking to view the high-end collections." Liana's jaw clenched, but she kept her tone level. "I said I'd take this bracelet." Philip gave a short, dismissive chuckle. "Of course. I'll ring it up, if your card goes through." Vivian folded her arms. "You'd think people would know their limits." "Some folks just like pretending," Camille added. And just then, before Liana could speak again, the boutique's glass doors opened a second time. The soft jingle echoed like a bell of justice. Every head turned. A tall man in a dark navy suit entered, his gait calm, his silver-framed glasses catching the light. His presence shifted the atmosphere. He wasn't flashy, but there was a quiet command in the way he scanned the room and how the staff instinctively straightened their backs. Philip took a step forward. "Good afternoon, sir. Can I help?" But the man ignored him entirely. His gaze had locked onto Liana from across the store. He walked past the jewelry cases, past Vivian's frozen smirk, past the muted whispers of the staff. When he reached Liana, he stopped, his voice low and warm. "Miss, are you all right?" Liana blinked. "Yes," she said, voice uncertain. "I'm just trying to purchase this bracelet." The man nodded once, then turned to Philip. "And is there a reason she hasn't been helped?" Philip opened his mouth, but the man raised a hand, just a gesture, but it was enough to silence him. "I'll take care of this," he said, eyes still on Liana. "Please process her transaction. And be quick about it." It was then that the younger sales associate nearest the register whispered, "That's Mr. Gallagher. From corporate." Philip's face drained of color. His shoulders stiffened. "Of course," he mumbled, moving to the register. Liana followed slowly, her hands trembling slightly as she pulled out her card. She tried not to look at Vivian or Camille, who now stood awkwardly off to the side, their smirks erased. As the receipt printed, Liana felt a strange clarity settle over her. She didn't need to speak. She didn't need to defend herself. Not anymore. She signed her name, took the bag, and nodded politely to Mr. Gallagher. But just as she turned toward the exit, the boutique doors opened again. And the room would never be the same. The moment the boutique's glass doors opened again, a hush fell across the Emerald Loft like a switch had been flipped. Liana's fingers still held the receipt from her purchase, her modest bracelet resting in a delicate emerald-colored box tucked into a branded bag that now felt heavier than it should. She hadn't even taken a full step toward the exit when the soft click of polished shoes against the marble floor drew every gaze toward the entrance. In walked a man, tall, composed, with steel-gray hair neatly swept back and a face that carried the calm, steely edge of authority. His tailored navy overcoat hung open, revealing a subtle pinstripe suit and a tie the color of midnight. He didn't stroll in. He moved with purpose. With awareness. As if the room already belonged to him. And to some extent, it did. Liana recognized him first, though not personally. His face had appeared on Forbes covers and financial op-eds. He was Mr. Evan Gallagher, the executive vice president of Gallagher Holdings, the parent company of this very store. But what struck her wasn't the weight of his title. It was the way he saw her. Not through her outfit. Not through the lens of what she could afford. He simply saw her. Philip, the store manager who only moments ago had belittled her in front of customers and staff, froze like a marionette whose strings had just been cut. His voice, just seconds earlier dripping with scorn, now struggled to find its footing. "Mr. Gallagher, sir, what a surprise. We weren't expecting." Evan Gallagher didn't so much as glance at him. His eyes remained on Liana. "Miss," he said gently, his voice low and even, "I noticed you were preparing to make a purchase. May I assist you?" Liana, still caught in the tailwind of everything that had just happened, took a second too long to respond. Yes. I was just finishing up." Philip attempted to step in again. "It's all handled, Mr. Gallagher." "She's already chosen. I wasn't speaking to you, Philip," Evan replied, without raising his voice. It wasn't loud, but the message carried the weight of a thunderclap. The room tensed. Liana held out the bag slightly, as if offering proof. "It's a gift," she said quietly. "For my grandfather." Evan nodded once, eyes softening. "Excellent choice," he said after glancing at the receipt. "The olive branch carving, that's a symbol of peace. Very fitting." Philip now hovered like a ghost, unsure of his place in the room, his expression flickering between panic and discomfort. Vivian, the socialite who had gleefully mocked Liana just moments earlier, shifted in her stilettos, crossing one arm over her designer clutch. Her smirk had vanished, replaced by thinly veiled apprehension. Camille Rivers stood slightly behind her, lips pressed into a faint, unreadable line. Mr. Gallagher finally turned toward Philip, slowly and with chilling precision. "Would you care to explain," he began, voice still calm but unmistakably edged, "why this customer was directed to the clearance display and humiliated in full view of the store?" Philip stammered. "Sir, it was just a misunderstanding. I thought well, I didn't mean to." "You didn't think at all," Gallagher cut in. "And you most certainly didn't lead with service. Which is our core value, unless you've forgotten." He turned briefly toward the staff, who now stood frozen behind their counters, trying to look as small as possible. "Is this how we welcome customers at the Emerald Loft? By judging their worth based on attire?" The question hung in the air like smoke. No one answered. Gallagher turned back to Liana. "You shouldn't have had to experience that," he said. "This store, this brand, it was built to celebrate the artistry of Jade. Not to serve as a playground for elitism." Philip was pale now, sweat blooming at his temples. "Sir, I take full responsibility, and you will," Gallagher replied. "But not today. Right now, you will do exactly what I say. You will process this transaction correctly, you will apologize to the customer, and you will ensure she receives whatever remaining discount was applicable to the piece she selected. That will come out of your commission, not hers." The sound of gasping wasn't loud, but it was everywhere. Philip's mouth opened as if to object, but Gallagher's gaze pinned him still. "Now." Wordlessly, Philip turned and walked to the register, his movements robotic. Gallagher gave Liana a nod, his expression softer. "If you're all right with it, I'd like to personally oversee this for you." She nodded once, still trying to gather her composure. Her cheeks were hot, but it wasn't shame anymore, it was awe. The receipt was reprinted. The bag was rechecked. The discount applied. When it was done, Philip looked at her like a man praying for mercy. "Ma'am," he muttered, barely above a whisper, "I'm sorry for my earlier behavior." Liana held his gaze. "You should be apologizing to every person you ever made feel small in this store," she replied. She wasn't angry, but she wasn't going to let him off the hook with a mumbled line either. Gallagher stepped forward and placed a business card into her palm. "If you ever need anything from this brand again, contact me directly," he said. "You deserve better." Liana gave a quiet thank you, her voice still catching. Before she could take a step, Vivian spoke. Her tone was half-hearted, a poor attempt at humor that only made her seem smaller. "Well, this turned into a scene, didn't it?" Liana turned slowly. "You know," she said, calm and measured, "it doesn't cost anything to be kind. But apparently it still bankrupts some people." Camille looked away. Vivian opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Gallagher was already opening the door for Liana. "Please, allow me." She stepped out into the late afternoon sunlight, bag in hand, the bracelet nestled safely inside. But before the door could close behind her, another sound echoed in the air, the soft ding of the boutique's front door opening once more. And this time, the entire room went silent. A new presence entered. The man who stepped in wore a tailored charcoal suit, no tie, his crisp white shirt open at the collar. His skin was warm-toned, his eyes sharp, his jaw tight with concern the moment he spotted Liana. He wasn't just someone powerful, he radiated power. Every inch of him spoke of quiet, lethal authority. He wasn't here to browse. He was here for her. And everything, once again, was about to shift. The boutique's front door hadn't even shut behind Mr. Gallagher before it opened again, the soft chime of its entrance bell cutting through the tension like a blade. Everyone inside the Emerald Loft turned instinctively, their heads snapping toward the source of the sound. For a heartbeat, the room held still, caught in the kind of collective breath people take when they know something is about to shift. And then he walked in. The man wore a tailored charcoal suit that clung to his broad shoulders like it had been made with him in mind, and it had. His shirt was open at the collar, no tie, just understated confidence. His hair was closely cropped, a fine line of beard perfectly edged. Behind him, two men in subtle earpieces and black slacks lingered at the threshold, still as statues. But it was the man at the center that changed the air. His presence didn't announce itself with volume. It moved like gravity, silent, inescapable, undeniable. His eyes found Liana instantly, and the sharp lines of his face softened. He walked straight past Mr. Gallagher, past the cases of emerald bangles and carved Buddhas, past Vivian's astonished silence and Camille's carefully curated mask of indifference. He stopped only when he reached her. "Liana," he said gently, his voice low and rich, the kind of voice that made people pause without understanding why. "Are you okay?" Her breath caught before she could speak. The warmth in his eyes cut through the cool marble of the boutique, grounding her. "I am now," she said. Her words were simple, but the way she said them was filled with something deeper. Not just relief. Not just recognition. But a recentering. Philip, who had been inching toward the back like a man trying to become invisible, suddenly seemed to realize who had just entered. He blinked hard, his lips parting as though trying to form the man's name before it escaped his memory. But it was Vivian who said it aloud, barely a whisper, and yet every syllable felt like a verdict. "Dr. Julian Carter." Camille's eyes widened fractionally. The name hung in the air, heavier than any jewel in the store. Dr. Julian Carter, the self-made billionaire, founder of Carter Global, tech innovator, philanthropist, and according to Forbes, one of the 10 most influential business leaders in the world. The man who, it was now glaringly clear, not only owned Gallagher Holdings, the luxury empire that included the Emerald Loft, but who also happened to be married to the woman they'd spent the last 20 minutes ridiculing. Philip paled to the color of printer paper. "Dr. Carter, I didn't realize." Julian turned his head slowly toward him, his expression unreadable. "No," he said calmly. "You didn't." It wasn't just a statement. It was a judgment. A truth too obvious to need elaboration. He shifted his attention to Mr. Gallagher. Evan. Mr. Gallagher straightened, his voice respectful. Yes, sir. You've handled things well, Julian said. Thank you. I'll take it from here. Then he turned to the rest of the room. His voice didn't rise, but it carried with it a weight that demanded every ear and silenced every whisper. Let's make one thing clear. This is not how we treat people. Not in my stores. Not in my company. Not ever. His eyes swept across the boutique, landing on each employee, each shopper, like a spotlight. What I witnessed here today wasn't just poor service. It was prejudice. It was arrogance. It was a failure of basic human decency. He stepped forward, his presence filling the room like a slow-moving storm. My wife came here today to buy a bracelet for her grandfather. She came and dressed humbly, without pretense, without expectation. And instead of being helped, she was insulted, dismissed, and mocked by people who thought they could measure her worth by the shoes on her feet. His voice dropped, and somehow it became even more commanding. That ends now. Philip opened his mouth, desperation climbing into his voice. Sir, I swear, I didn't know who she was. Julian's eyes snapped to him. And that's exactly the problem. Silence. The kind of silence that burns. Julian turned back to Liana, reaching for her hand. You okay? He asked again. This time, she nodded. But her voice was steady when she answered. Yes. But this isn't just about me. Julian's gaze lingered on her with pride. Then he faced the staff. Starting today, every employee at the Emerald Loft will undergo mandatory diversity, inclusion, and customer service retraining. That includes management. That includes corporate. And that includes you, Mr. Reynolds. Philip looked like he'd swallowed broken glass. If I may, you may not, Julian cut in, his tone final. You'll also issue a public apology, not just to my wife, but to every customer you've made feel small because they didn't fit your idea of what wealth looks like. Vivian shifted beside the glass display, attempting to slide into the shadows. Julian turned to her with the faintest tilt of his head. Miss Chase. Miss Rivers. I assume you'd like to apologize as well. Camille was the first to speak, her voice composed but flat. Of course. Liana held up her hand. Don't, she said. It's done. Vivian opened her mouth, then closed it. She didn't look at Liana. She just clutched her clutch a little tighter and gave the smallest, stiffest nod. Julian took Liana's hand again, intertwining their fingers. Let's go, he said softly. Together, they walked toward the door, the bag with the jade bracelet swinging gently at Liana's side. But just as they reached the exit, Julian paused. He turned back, his voice quiet but resolute. The next time someone walks through that door, remember, you have no idea who they are. But you have every chance to show who you are. Choose better. With that, the door opened again, and this time, it closed behind them like the final line of a story well told. Outside, the sun had dipped lower in the sky, casting warm golden light across the sidewalk. The traffic hummed, the world continued. Liana exhaled. It wasn't just relief. It was release. She looked up at her husband. Thank you, she said. He smiled, brushing a thumb across the back of her hand. You didn't need me to step in, he said. You already handled it. I just closed the chapter. Still, she murmured, it meant something. You mean something, he said. They forgot that. Now they won't. As they moved down the sidewalk together, the city around them barely noticed. But inside the Emerald Loft, a reckoning was unfolding. And in Liana's hand, the simple olive branch bracelet gleamed, a symbol of peace, yes. But also of quiet strength. Of dignity. Of the power to walk into any room and leave with your head held high. She had come to buy a gift for her grandfather. She left with that, and more. She left having reminded a room of people, powerful, privileged people, what worth truly looked like. And it looked a lot like her. In writing this story, I wanted to remind us all of something deeply important, something that often gets lost in the glitter and noise of appearances, titles, and assumptions. True worth cannot be measured by what you wear, what you own, or how quietly you walk into a room. It's measured by how you carry yourself when no one expects anything of you, and how you respond when others try to define your value for you. Liana didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her quiet dignity spoke volumes. She came to the Emerald Loft with one simple goal: to buy a gift from the heart for the man who raised her. Instead, she was faced with judgment, dismissal, and ridicule from people who saw only the outside. But rather than lash out or retreat, she stood her ground, with grace, patience, and self-respect. That is power. That is resilience. And when truth finally walked through the door, first in the form of Mr. Gallagher, then her husband, Dr. Julian Carter, it wasn't there to save her. She had already stood tall on her own. It was there to shine a light on what had been hidden, the biases we carry, the ways we make people feel invisible, and how easily we mistake labels for character. Let this be a reminder: you never know someone's story. You never know what they've overcome, who they love, who loves them, or what they're capable of. And you most certainly don't know their worth by the price tag on their shoes or the label inside their collar. So if you're ever in a position to serve, whether you're in customer service, leadership, or simply a fellow human being, lead with kindness. Lead with respect. Treat everyone as if they matter, because they do. And to anyone who has ever been looked down on, underestimated, or made to feel small, keep walking, keep standing, keep showing up. Your value is not determined by who sees it, it's determined by the strength with which you hold onto it, even when no one else does. To our dear listeners, thank you for spending your time with us today. Your presence here means the world. If this story spoke to you, inspired you, or reminded you of your own quiet strength, please share it with someone who needs that reminder too. At US Instructive Stories, we believe in lifting voices, exposing injustice, and celebrating the quiet courage that changes everything. Until next time, stay strong, stay kind, and never let anyone make you forget your worth.